space. So today, almost every campus has an incubator, an accelerator, some kind of a launchpad. IIT Madras is leading India in this way, the way in which it combines industry, academic, and government perspectives. So it's a big honor for us. Thanks, Vinay, for getting us all over here today. What's also very important is perspectives from industry. There's an industry organization called NASSCOM. There's another one called CII, another one called FICCI. These bring together industry leaders to talk about where is the industry going in each of these areas. As I mentioned, healthcare, education, and fintech are some of the most important priorities for most of us, and we need to figure out how can technology help us in our healthcare journey as well. What's also important is, along with health, is also wealth. How do you manage your wealth? So back in the day, we never had too much of these stock market things and all that. But you need to know today how the stock market works. You need to know a bit about if you're going to become a founder, how to get grants from government and industry, how to get grants from other kind of science research institutions, how to get investments from private sector players, and how can all this improve your own financial security in life. So we're living in very uncertain economic times. If you read the news every other day, there's some problem with some exam somewhere or the other. There are all kinds of things like this whole cockroach Janata Party, etc. Amazing stuff happening. So I'm not sure which side of the spectrum you're on, but it's a big change that this country needs to go through. We've also seen how different kinds of governments are responding. So different states are competing with each other. I live in Bangalore, which has one of the most vibrant AI marketplaces, and we're seeing a lot of that happening here also in Chennai. Chennai is the SaaS capital of the world in the startup ecosystem. Delhi is more GovTech, Bombay is more FinTech. So we're seeing a lot of different kinds of plays of each city. So now it is cities which must compete with each other, states which compete with each other, governments which compete with each other. There's a very interesting report which came out last month called the Startup Ecosystem Report, the Global Startup Ecosystem Report, and it ranks all the different cities of the world in terms of where they are in the top 50, top 40 rankings for the best startup ecosystem. So cities like Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi are pretty high up in that list. Of course, the usual suspects, Silicon Valley and so on, are in the lead. But this doesn't mean that we must follow the Silicon Valley book all the time. The big discussion in AI now is, should we all follow the Anthropic kind of model or the OpenAI kind of model, or should we come up with an own Sarvam kind of a model of AI? So how do we approach the whole issue of data and so on? And as you all know, the healthcare sector has a huge amount of data. So the good thing about India is almost every problem that you look at is population scale. So there are billions of people here from which we can get data about healthcare and so on. Different kinds of ecosystems, different states, different cuisines. So each of these have different ways in which they interplay with us. So India is unfortunately at the lead in some rankings, like the diabetes capital of the world is India, etc. That's not a kind of ranking that we should be aspiring to, but we should take a look at how can we all try to live a much better lives in that sense. So we have 4 speakers. Can you get the names up, or can you just read out the names from them if you got anything on your phone?
So I'd like to invite the speakers here. We have Dr. Naveen Narendranath first, a surgeon, a medical director, RKI Center, and he works with over a dozen hospitals. So next we have Dr. Srijit Narayan. He couldn't make it here. He's stuck in Coimbatore, but we have a video from him. We'll play it later. Next, we'd like to invite Dr. Aarti Sasidaran from IIT Madras Research Park. And we have Mr. Ganesh Chandrasekharan, founder of Efficiency AI and from the NASSCOM Deep Tech, apart from multiple other hats that he wears. We'd like to invite Mr. Vivek Mishra, SVP and Donal Head South of Novama Wealth.
Great, fantastic. We got about an hour ahead of us. I know some of the speakers have a hard stop, so we need to move a bit fast. We've already shared a whole bunch of questions online. I'm going to go through some of them now, but I want to keep it open to you for questions. So you are as important as all the speakers here on the stage. So maybe for 2 or 3 quick questions for each of you, and then I'll pause for questions from you, and then we'll end up with another bunch of questions from here. So how many of you have a big interest in the healthcare sector? It's your number 1 priority in life, health. Not even good. So our job is to convince them all that healthcare is the most important thing to look at. Thanks for giving us a challenge. Nothing like a good challenge for entrepreneurs. So my first question is going to be for Naveen over here. Naveen, you're a surgeon. You also are in the product space. You also are an entrepreneur. So can you tell us what are some problems where technology has not yet moved the needle in the healthcare sector? We all talk about wearables and AI and this and that, but where is it still not penetrating the healthcare sector?
So I think as far as being a surgeon goes, the surgical time, I'm an eye specialist. So the most common surgery that I perform would be the cataract surgery. How many of you have heard of cataracts? I'm sure most of your parents, grandparents have undergone, yeah. So it's a fairly common surgery. And LASIK is another thing that we perform. These are refractive surgeries, right? So the surgical times have come down, like in the sense, the average time for a cataract surgery would be somewhere between 7 to 10 minutes. That's all it takes. The average time for a smile lenticle procedure or for LASIK would be anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. That's all. But what I find most of my patients, the difficulty that they face is putting the medicines after that, putting the eye drops. That becomes a big challenge for my patients. Many of them are old. They have tremors in their hands. And initially, immediately after the surgery, the drops, the medications that these patients have to use would sometimes have to be once in an hour or once in every 2 hours. So that becomes really difficult for some of the patients. They need a separate caretaker for them. So what I was thinking was, there is technology that's already available in the form of drug-eluting stents. These are stents which are placed in the coronary artery in the heart. Whenever there's you're expecting some block or something like that, they place these things. So there is definitely a place in the future where some sort of depot preparation can be installed just outside the eye or just within your eyelid, so that it can keep the drug delivery for a longer period of time. So technology is there, it hasn't come up in a big way. I think a lot more research can come up and we can come up with a lot of new products, not just for surgeons, but also for a lot of chronic eye problems. Like you have problems like glaucoma, where every day, people need to keep putting drops. So if that can be made easier, or if the depot can be changed once in a month or once in 2 months, that would make life so much easier for my patients. So surgery is no longer a difficult thing. Patients come in, walk out. They get discharged 5 minutes after the surgery. So the surgery itself, which we all think is like the main thing, right, is not a factor. So so as a surgeon, this is one thing that I've come across.
Where does technology not move the thing? People are AI and all that stuff. People are talking about digital therapy. But what are the limits of digital therapy?
So another major thing is, see, previously it was very simple. The doctor would see the patient, you write few things down, but now with all data being captured, everything you need an EMR, you need all kinds of entry that has to happen, and that's becoming quite a cumbersome process, and it's taking the focus away from us doctors, like from doing the core clinical stuff. We are pretty much in front of the system, typing in all our clinical findings, our history, and everything has to be captured. So it's taking way too much of my time, and I need to delegate it to somebody else. It's taking way too much of their time. So I think technology can come in a big way, because now we have AI tools like WhisperFlow and a lot of voice to speech to text type of things are there. If that could be seamlessly integrated with an EMR or an electronic medical record, I think that would be a great thing. So I'm looking at something like that in the future.
Great, thanks. We'll come back to trends a bit later on. Let's go to the other side of the table. Aarti, you're at IIT Madras Research Park. So tell us a bit about what's happening from an investor point of view. How much interest is coming into the space? How should founders make themselves investor ready? What should factors should they be looking at?
A very good afternoon to all of you. It's very nice to see a lot of youngsters out here. A little disappointing to know that very less speakers on MedTech. So IIT Madras Research Park is just a stone's throw away. I hope some of you have visited the research park. It's a conglomerate of startups, industry clients, and centers of excellence who set up their shop to collaborate with the academia, which they institute, and the centers of excellence. Now we have a very robust startup ecosystem over there, the IIT Madras Incubation Cell. It's got extended arms on the sector-wise, which is divided. So we have a very interesting MedTech Center of Excellence called HTIC, Healthcare Technology Innovation Center, They have incubated close to about 37 to 40 startups and very, very young founders. And the kind of they MedTech comes broadly under the category of deep tech. So, what is the meaning of deep tech? As per the Department of Science and Technology, deep tech is any endeavor that takes about 18 months of time, difficult to come out with a product and long in tech. MedTech also, there's a concept called Valley of Death. I don't know if anyone of you know that. It's a long lead cycle. MedTech takes time. So, initially, at least up to a few years back, the concept was how do you replace imports in India? That is imports of machines. That is what makes medical care more expensive and inaccessible to the common man. So most of the treatment procedures were largely not accessible to people in tier 2 and tier 3 colleges. When you start, producing it in India, part of the Atmanirbhar, you're bringing the cost down. So the larger the focus was on that, but we feel one should step a little further. You not only should think of replacing imports, you should very strong IP driven technologies. We have, as a country, we have made a presence in the place of manufacturing and to an extent in SaaS and to an extent in AI. We should also put a step forward in ideating, developing, manufacturing, and scaling. So it should not be just a import replacement industry. You should look at innovating in India, making in India, and scaling to other countries. And that, I think, for an investor is very, very interesting because multiple constituents are there. One, the strength of the founder, technological strength, depth of technology. And when that comes in, technology is not easily replaced. It can't be replicated easily. And with that, a strong ecosystem like we have in IIT Madras and at IIT Madras Research Park, you have the access to the faculty who can guide you, the laboratories where you can do your testing. We also have the access to the hospital community where you can validate it. The government bodies also we have access which can make your validations and your FDA approvals. We can create or open doors for startups in that space or nudge you in that direction. And then manufacture. And then later on, you should look at always taking it to the other countries to scale up. So that would be key from an investor point of view is what I think.
Very nice. I'll ask the same question to Ganesh in a different way, but I'd like to echo what she said about you're all very fortunate that you've got a world-class institute like the Research Park right on your campus. Make the most of it. Go and see what the whole startup mindset is all about. I often hear people saying, "Oh, I'm a student. I want to get a job in a nice big company." Then I will think about all this startup stuff. But the point of this whole activity, this panel, this whole Research Park Center is the earlier you get understanding of what entrepreneurial thinking is, you can use that no matter where you are. In fact, big companies actually like people who are intrapreneurs, who have the same startup mindset within the company. So in the company, can you come up with ideas of your own, learn how to navigate organizational bureaucracy, all this stuff, come up with your own ideas and build the next big world-beating product out of a big company, which is also perfectly fine. So you don't all have to become startup, but you all must have that creative mindset of how to do an entrepreneurship initiative, how to do your own venture. Ganesh, in addition to having your own company at inside, you also have an industry background with Mascom, with the National Association of Software Services Companies. In fact, our office is either work out of the Mascom Center of Excellence in Bangalore. It was great to have you here, Ganesh. So you got a very good outside in and inside out view of how India fits into the global tech scene, health scene, and so on. So what would you say is India's unique positioning in the global thing, and from your own experience, your own company, how you leading this space?
Good afternoon, everyone. So it's good to know that the audience are not interested in medtech or they have not raised their hands because I don't have any competitors. That is one way, but I'm also inviting people to be part of this ecosystem to help India grow where we want to be. So now coming to your point, question, and also what I think I've said here. See, today, medtech or rather the health tech is moving from, say, a digital healthcare system into something like an intelligent, outcome-driven healthcare or physical healthcare. Because, see, the data is there with everyone. Everyone, or most of you must be using some device or the other. So you're always connected. If you're connected, then your body is also connected to some device, and the device is generating some kind of a data. Now, that data is useless unless it is kind of sent to someone who can actually understand what it is and then make some meaning out of it. From there, they can prescribe to you. And today, it is all related to prescription, like Dr. Madanmohan Rao said initially, and now we want to get into the preventer. So you're also wearing the devices, not knowing why you're actually wearing it. It can be lifestyle, it can be wellness, and all these things. So now the point is to bring it, give some meaning out of it, and then make it much more. Say the data can it can become meaningful to the doctors in particular. So that is the first part. Now comes the second part is we also have a digital public infrastructure today, and you have more than 100 crore ABA records being created. So there are a lot of records that are already available with not only the government or the hospitals, but also it is there in the public domain as well. So now how are we going to make use of that? And that is where the opportunity for us as entrepreneurs lies. Because we can pick and choose which area we want to actually go in and then start creating some products and build certain ecosystem around it. Then the third one is not many of you are aware that India is also a leading medical tourism kind of a system that we are operating, where close to about 5.5% of tourist arrivals, foreign tourist arrivals are for the medical, say, Medicare. And that is where we have a lot of opportunity. And it starts from, say, let's say, an AI-enabled pre-arrival assessment and to continuous monitoring and take care of people even after they return back. So I have come out with some kind of a powerful proposition which says that treat in India, recover anywhere. So it's like you just come over here, get treated, and then because you're already connected, you have all the digital tools that are available. You also have certain monitoring systems in place. So you can just go there and then you can make use of the telehealth to connect to the surgeons or the doctors who are around here. And now coming to the what Aarti ma'am touched upon was on the what India can do. So if you look at it, I'm not sure how many of you know, like what is the number of devices that we have actually sold from India? Any guess? From an export perspective, it's close to about 1.4 billion devices are being sold from India.
Every year?
Yeah, it's the data is about 24-25 for that. So that is something like, and we are expecting it to touch to 50 million. And I would like to be part of that 50 million journey because I'm not only wearing the hat of Epicent, but I am also working on the other segment, which is in the Ayurveda segment completely, where we are actually with the help of IIT, we are trying to build a health chip from scratch from India. And then we are trying to bring in the standardization of Ayurveda or Siddha and all others because there is no standardization and people just laugh off when you say that you're taking an Ayurveda treatment. But when it is standardized and it is recorded, then it has some meaning and then you can actually kind of use a scientific temper into it and bring in and you can argue with people as to why it is also good with allopathy or any other stream of medicine that you want. And finally, now going back to the other part of it, I'm just looking at it from these 5 segments, which is preventive and remote healthcare is one of the major areas or particular areas of interest that people can take up. Then the other one is going to be the AI diagnostics, which is picking up. Then the other one is continued monitoring because that is where it starts from preventive, not just for it can be used for predictive and also preventive and not just for post care. Then it is going to be the rehabilitation and physiotherapy. That is where the area that I'm working on, and then try to bring in the affordable medical devices, because once you start exporting or getting importing medical devices, it becomes slightly expensive. So that is where when we work with say IIT Madras or all the other say indigenous ecosystem out here, and that's why we want you people to jump into medtech also at some point of time so that you can help in bringing the cost down. And then it's like the typical one of what the surgeons are already using, which is robotics, AR, and the other one which is slowly picking up, and I think Dr. can actually kind of help us in giving a little bit on that information is the AI-enabled biology.
Great, thanks. I wish Vijit was here. He's the Ayurveda specialist here, but I guess we got a video afterwards, right? Yeah. So it comes with the data, but let's turn to our next speaker over here, Vivek. Vivek, you come from another spectrum. You come more from the wealth side, but wealth and health are opposite sides of the same coin. Can you share with us some of your thoughts on wealth generation in the health sector? Where the different opportunities and how they can be tackled?
Yeah, so thank you, Dr. Madan. And yes, as you said, I come from a very different background, and that is why I believe I can share a different perspective on what you are here. So how we would like to call ourselves? We are like the ecosystem super connectors, if I might call ourselves like that. And coming to your question, how wealth management especially for medical professionals has been changing of it. Earlier, all of you would recall, as in all of us in our childhood have visited doctors, hospitals, and everything, right? As in the money that a doctor would accumulate would typically be dependent on how much work he was doing on a regular basis. Basically, the number of hours that he was putting into his work, and that is what his wealth, and that is the manner in which his wealth was getting generated. But now doctors, hospital owners, all of them have moved much beyond that. So the wealth ecosystem, as far as the wealth ecosystem is concerned, today doctors are IP owners, intellectual property right owners. Today doctors are also investors. So a lot of, or a few of you who would possibly start something of their own, possibly doctors or hospital chain owners, they would be investors into you. So now the doctor's wealth doesn't only compute or gets enhanced by their working hours, but it also gets compounded because they, as I said, that they are IP owners, equity owners. They come as limited partners into a lot of investment vehicles like alternative investment funds and everything. So the money continues to multiply. So the system has changed significantly, and I believe the way of managing and compounding wealth for the entire ecosystem, and especially for larger doctors or larger ecosystems, that has changed considerably over last few years for sure.
Great, thanks. We'll come to the video a bit later. Maybe do one more round of questions over here first. So my next question again is to Naveen. Naveen, there are many problems obviously in the healthcare sector, but would you care to point maybe one or two which you think really need to be solved and hopefully technology can help, and maybe some of the students here can get into a space?
Yeah, I think there are many. I think first and foremost, I think from a doctor surgeon point of view, I think like I already mentioned, if there can be something where there's a seamless interface while I'm examining the patient, if those things can automatically come into a software, it's captured by the software, I think that would be great. Number two is, I think if we can have like 3D printing technology that can be used for creating instruments just on the fly, for creating intraocular lenses, like for cataract surgery. We, after removing the cataract, we place a lens inside the eye, right? And these lenses are stocked. I mean, we have different companies which come out with different lenses. So, and each has their own proprietary technology and so on and so forth. But if I had something like a 3D printer, which could just print out a lens, which is just perfect for that patient, and if I implant that, I think that would just completely change the whole intraocular lens game. That would be a game changer. So, yeah, we also have AI coming up and IoT. If all these things can also be integrated in the surgeon or doctor's day-to-day thing, I think that would be.
Great. I'm glad you mentioned all these very different kinds of use cases. It's very important for engineers to also look at other domains to see how can we complement each other. So very often you may not have the medical expertise yourself. Okay, find a co-founder who can then work with you and say, I know the medical part, you know the tech part, let's work together. So that's my next question now to Aarti, which is what are some qualities that founders and co-founders should have when they come together to create some hybrid kind of a product, which is fintech. So not everyone knows about finance, stock market, etc. But they know algorithms, maybe they can combine with finance. So also with healthcare and so on, any other sectors. So what are some qualities that you think are important?
So on a broader note, that is one of the reasons I would invite all of you to visit research fund, because that is a ground where you see synergies crossing one another. You see somebody in a fintech space working along with a medtech person. You see somebody in robotics working with an aerospace. So startup. You see startups cross functioning or cross collaborating, if I could, say that. Coming to a particular startup, what we look at in founders is one is expertise in technology. Do they complement one another? By and large, from an investor point of view, it is important to have two founders at least, because single founders is not something that investors are very keen to invest in. And the founders, the caliber of the founders, their passion in technology, the depth of technology knowledge that they have, and the far side, the openness to listen, openness. Do we see openness in discussing frankly their problems? Because until unless a founder understands, recognizes, and has the will to move on and change and improvise as the, like, for an example, you start in a B2B market and then you see the market evolving and you end up moving on to a B2C market. You should be able to pivot. You are doing very well in India and you're scaling. You want to target an international market. You should be able to pivot. So that versatility or that agility is something that we look forward to.
Great, thanks. I'll pose a similar question to Ganesh now. Obviously, technology is in the lead now. A lot of ideas are very excited that wow, AI can go everywhere, the digital is everywhere, etc. But how should founders go beyond this tech fascination to get deep into a problem and say, this is where I can apply tech and how to apply?
So, to me, it is more to do with AI. It is not like what AI can do. It is more what AI can do with safety and with the human or the right human oversight. So that is the most important thing from a health or a medtech perspective. And then medtech is not like sitting in isolation. For that, like I said, we are working on semicon, the chips part of it. Then you need sensors, then you need MEMS, then you need all the AI models and all these things. Then you need the various devices, then you need the right algorithms, and then finally the right system in place. Like you need to go through the regulatory authorities, then you need to have a bunch of other things to make it work. So this is something which cannot, and in fact, the right materials. So not many people give importance to the material science part of it, but every geography or maybe every region, the skin is different from the other person. So you need to have the right set of material where one wearable that I'm wearing can be used by the other person also. And it has to look at the sensitivity part of it. Then so which means that it's a combination of a bunch of other, say, streams also come into picture. So this is where I see that people can actually work or co-work, and there's a space for everyone to contribute to make medtech as one of the leading. Maybe we can be the top two, because we were part of the pharma revolution in the early 2000s, which we lost out in the API race, where we are second and third now. So we can be in the top 2 or 3 in the medtech race in the coming years.
That's a very good perspective coming from the pharma side. There's a good book you should all check out called Made in India, the story of Lupin. So Lupin is one of the top pharma companies in India, how they went from generics to coming up with some of their own products. They went on to beat many of the companies in other parts of the world. They acquired companies in other parts of the world. And now they see the combination of AI and pharma as the next big thing. Drug discovery and so on. I don't know much about that, but that's another big area to look at. I'm going to come back to Vivek again now. I'm sure many of you as students are looking at what right now my parents are looking after me, but when I go abroad, how will I finance my education? So there's a whole bunch of fintech called edu-fintech now. Some of you may want to go into the agri sector. There's a field called agri-fintech, how to get fintech financing for your different agriculture initiatives. There's also med fintech or health fintech, how to take a look at how to get insurance against different kinds of diseases in the future, insurance for the whole family, etc. So all of you should be thinking both near term and long term about your whole financial horizon. So my question to Vivek is, what are some financial habits and what are the kinds of long term and near term perspectives that people should be taking?
Yeah, I think this would be one of my favorite questions, and which I come across a lot of times because of the nature of my work, I meet a lot of ultra high net worth people. So I have got the opportunity to interact with them, interact with a lot of founders, a lot of corporate individuals, and all across as a businessman, entrepreneurs, everybody. I know that at this point of time, possibly you might not be founders, but I would like to that you go away today with few lessons which you can use possibly when you become one. Okay. One of the very big mistakes that I have seen founders making very often is tying their 100% net worth to their enterprise itself. Okay. What happens very often is that they will take meager salaries and live in limited means just because they are putting in money and energies behind their venture completely. Although nothing wrong with that, but what happens is that if what we advise them to do is that during Series B or Series C rounds, normally if they can dilute 5 to 10% of their stake, what it gives them is that it gives them a sense of financial security. Okay, and what financial security allows them to do is to take even higher risk. Okay, so that is something which we always, when we interact with founders, we always ask them to do something like this. One more thing you should always remember, as and when you become founders or when you go in your life and careers, that deleverage your self balance sheet with the company's balance sheet. Okay, and as I said, that we come across as ecosystem connectors. Okay, so we have people or we have expertise in all of this. Okay. Deleveraging your personal balance sheet from the corporate balance sheet is very important because again that gives you the confidence to continue for a real long term. Third thing that we advise our investors is that when you will become entrepreneurs, and not only in this sector but in any sector for that matter, there's a very big risk of getting your best of the engineers or best of the people getting poached by some very large organizations, because that is how the industry works, right? As in you have figured out a very talented individual is working with you for 5 years, 7 years, and then suddenly he gets an offer he can't refuse, right? So that happens very often. Okay, then how do you stop them from going? So we advise organizations, we advise entrepreneurs on how do they create their ESOP structures, because when you give ownership to your key employees, they have a reason to be with you for a longer term. Okay, so we advise entrepreneurs on all of those things, that how do you create that ESOP structure, how do you make sure that your key employees are there with you in the longer run, because that becomes one of the biggest reasons for a lot of startups to fail. Okay, so these are some things that we advise a lot of entrepreneurs on. If I have to leave you with a framework, and this is about regular investing, nothing from any specific technology or a sector specific investing, this I call as a 3F rule. Okay, what it means is friends, flags, and flowers. Okay, this is one mistake that a lot of high net worth individuals very often make, and we have seen it repeating very often. So when I say friends is, a lot of HNIs and ultra HNIs who are very good in their fields will end up making some decisions, like let's say buying a stock, might be listed, unlisted, just because his friend has bought it. Okay, without doing a proper research or a deep research into all of that. We have seen a lot of investors losing money in all of this. So that's what I call as friends. Then there is flags. Okay, we as Indians, doesn't matter where we are, one of the favorite asset classes that we have is real estate. And nothing wrong with real estate. We also do advise investors to invest in real estate. But then again, investing in real estate just because your next door neighbor has invested in some property in, as in there's a new airport which is coming, which was supposed to come in Chennai, right? Which has again got changed. Yeah. So things like that happen. Okay. So just because your next door neighbor bought a land somewhere because of some news which was going on, and you also did that, that's not a right way to approach investments. What we always say is that do your own research. Okay? Every asset class is good, every asset class is important, but do your own research. The last but not the least is flowers. And what I mean by that is that it will happen with you. And I'm saying this, you remember me when you are earning well and you're doing all of this, don't make these mistakes. What happens to us is when you start stock market investing now, very often you'll see that the stock that you picked went up by 50%, 100% in a 5 months time, 6 months time. It happens. It has always happened. It will happen again. We always have a temptation of cutting those flowers right there. Okay. Oh, I've made 100% gain. Let me come out of it. Okay. And at the same time, we end up watering the weeds. What I mean by saying that is that let's suppose if a stock has gone down by 50%, we'll continue holding on to it just because otherwise, if I sell, I will be losing money. So these are the two worst decisions to make, that you cut down your flowers before time and you continue to water down the weeds. So avoid these mistakes as and when you reach there, and I think you'll be in a better place.
There's a whole bunch of books on game theory, etc. written exactly about investment. That's not the whole world by itself. One more question for the speakers, but I want to see if you guys have any questions. Questions, comments? One of my friends has an analytics company in Chennai, and he gives the prizes in the company too. Not those who answer the questions, but those who ask the best questions. So I will let you, yes, thank you. Fantastic. Great.
For the flowers,
Okay.
if I would really like to discuss more about the flowers that you talked about, in that I would really like to know more about how not to cut down the flowers or water down the weeds. Like, for example, I actually have a growing well stock, but sometimes due to different fake news scenarios and different things, people tend to sell out their stocks, sell out their shares. So how do you keep yourself properly informed like that?
Okay, so first of all, it becomes very important that how did you buy that stock or made that investment? Again, did you made that investment because of somebody else's advice, or you have done your own research while buying it? And if you have done your own research, which you should, either it's a stock or it's a
to see that the basic premise for which you bought the investment, has that changed? For example, although you guys are pretty young, but I'm sure that all the panelists will remember, a few years back, there was a lot of downfall in the stock prices of Nestle, because Maggie had some masala thing, there was some issue. Okay. Now, if you're an investor in Nestle at that point of time, the question that ideally you should have asked, that because of this news, has anything changed in terms of financial terms for Nestle? The answer to that question was no. So if the answer to that question was no, because financially Nestle's sales were happening still, there were some inquiries and all of that, but as a company, it was still a very solid company to be a part of. So if you had made the decision to invest in Nestle at that point of time because of the basics and financials that they had, you will not take that decision to cut the flower at that point of time. Okay. So look, this is a huge field, and behavioral finance is a very interesting field. Okay. I'm sure you should take out time and read some very good books about behavioral finance. Dr. Madan would, I think, for sure would be recommending a couple of good books to us. But behavioral finance is a very interesting thing. And the idea, to exactly answer your question, move away from the noise. Okay. Don't listen to everybody. Take your own decision. Okay. But do your own study and do your own research. And if you have the confidence that what you have done or what you have invested in is a good thing to or a good stock to hold, continue holding on to it. For example, markets continue to give some very high price earning ratios to a lot of stocks. Okay. How it has started moving earlier, PE ratio, I'm going a slightly technical, and this is not a finance session, it's a healthcare session, but still, earlier people used to only look at PE ratio. Now they have started looking to PEG ratio. So price earning to growth ratio has become very important, which is called PEG ratio also at that point of time. Because if a company continues to grow, then a higher price earning multiple gets justified. Okay. Similarly, if an emerging market like India, even when Indian markets have not given any returns in last 2 years, Indian stock indices are still more highly valued than almost every developed country indices. Why? Because India is a high growth economy. And that is why world pays that kind of a premium to invest into India. So there are a lot of factors. Okay, I'm not sure if this is the right class to address all of that. But then, yeah, if your conviction is strong, I think you will never cut the flowers.
Very good. I think we'll have a masterclass on this topic at some other occasion. Very
Thank
good
you,
question.
sir.
Thanks, ma'am. Yes. Anybody else got a question? Yes, please. Here on this side. Shout out your name and tell us who you are. Yeah. Yeah. IITM Research Park is working very heavily on tech startups.
Hello.
Yeah, go on, go on. Yeah.
So IITM startups are working very heavily on deep tech, but one of the examples I have, like for Ether, they were working on deep tech, and the market shifted from petrol diesel vehicles to electric vehicles. But most of the startups, like one of the startups is working on air taxis, and some other one of them is working on hyperloop. So how will they work on building up the market for themselves? Like it's a matter of chance that the market will be created by themselves, or by some government interventions, or by other international brands, um, similar like that. So how are they ensuring that they will be relevant when they have a good ready to go product?
So the third one you said? Hyperloop.
Yeah.
Three different technologies, if I could tell you. Three in unique technologies. And when you apply for incubation at the incubation cell, one of the rudimentary screening is to see how thorough is your technology. Does it have a market viability? Is there a feasibility to it? And the founders, again, I like to repeat, are the founders strong in their technology? So whether you take Aether was not a chance. It was in line with the shift in the market that the founders had a far sight. They were two founders who were, I think, IIT Delhi, came down to do research on the idea or the project that they're doing. The then president of IITM Research Park, Professor Junjunwala, was strong in battery technology. Under his guidance, they developed that battery. They developed it into a startup, and you know Aether today. The air taxi, again, it is a sustainable. See, how do you beat the traffic? How I'll tell you the story of how a technology or a startup needs to pivot. When I joined Research Park in 2019, air taxi was about clean energy, clean tech, beat the traffic. It's got a direct thrust. You don't need a runway to land. You don't need a runway to take off. And that was a prototype. They built the one-to-one prototype. It was awaiting approvals, government approvals. And then came the USP. They pivoted to market it in tier 2, tier 3 cities, which was not properly connected, especially in the hilly areas. And they changed the marketing strategy to use the air taxi for transportation in those areas. Again, one more pivot was organ transplant. Organ has to be transplanted in a few hours, right? Once you get an organ, it has to be transported to the hospital with minimal delay. So now, if you've read the recent articles on ePlane, that's the name of the startup. Um, one of their marketing USPs is transportation of organ with minimal delay and at a very clean, using very clean technology. So that sets aside that startup, and it creates its own market. The third was, sorry, Hyperloop. Hyperloop is a beautiful technology in the making. Again, one of the Hyperloop startups, Twitter Hyperloop, vacuum transportation. It is costly. People have not successfully, or I'm not too sure if human beings have been tested on Hyperloop. I'm not too sure, but they've pivoted again. They are using the market for transportation of goods, which again is a good way of transporting, say, perishable items, or some items which has got a short shelf life. So they are yet to commercialize, but it has a market for itself, right? So the USP would be technology should be strong, but you should have the versatility and the agileness to pivot as per the market trends.
Very
Did
good
I answer your
examples. Yeah.
question?
Yeah, it does.
Any other question? We can take. Oh, wow, so many hands. Fantastic. Yes, go ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
be to Ganesh sir. So you mentioned that you mentioned a very particular point about India's demography being a major challenge in terms of building medical technology. And a lot of the medical challenges, I would say, is very India specific in that regard. And Aarti ma'am said that our eventual aim would be to build for India and then scale it internationally. So, how scalable do you think our, how would I say, the generalization of the demography is compared to a market like the US, where they have a lot of native international demography, compared to India, where a lot of our demography is India specific?
See, so it's almost the same. If you look at US or anywhere, unless otherwise you're going to Europe, where a lot of people are now moving into Europe or migrating to Europe. Here, it is not the migration is not the problem at all. See, it's like we keep working in Bangalore, or the folks in Hyderabad keep coming to Chennai, and it's been like that. See, all of us have got the body or the structure is almost the same to most of us, except maybe the Punjabis are slightly taller and heftier compared to, say, and South Indians are also almost similar. Whereas if you compare to the people in, let's say, Bengal and other places, or Maharashtra, slightly on the lower side on the height, weight, and all these perspective. But if you look at it by and large, our demography also is helped by the weather factors, because the food that we consume. See, the reason why people in South are being asked, when Dr. Madanmohan Rao said that we are a diabetes capital, and why are the doctors prescribing our folks to eat chapati rather than rice, is because, and similarly, you go to North, the first thing that they will say is that you eat rice because your consumption goes down. So in that way, it is almost same. And similarly, for us, the best thing is you have med cities. Some of them are coming up, or if we take the Boston kind of ecosystem as a med city, they are doing it for the world. How are they able to do it for the world? Because they have population from different people, or you also have some really good universities out there, and also some of the best companies are there sitting out there. So similarly, if you look at in say Chennai, for example, it's slowly getting into that area of, we have a medtech park. So a similar medtech park is already there in Hyderabad, and there's another one coming out in Andhra. But the difference is here we are more towards pharmaceutical side of it, the technology part of it, because we have, say, IITs are here. You also have some of the best colleges, because we have close to 13, 14 medical universities here in Tamil Nadu. So you have a huge ecosystem. Whereas if we go to Hyderabad, for example, it is more towards the life sciences, biology, genomics, and other things. So that is where we all can complement each other. And you know that, okay, where we lack, we can actually tap that resource there. And then you can actually bring in. And that is what, when I said in my last thing of 6 or 8 different areas that we have, that we can look on, which is from, say, the sensor part of it, the semicon. See, semicon already, Gujarat is already ahead in terms of creating some fabs out there. So you start working with them and try to, once we are ready here, we can replicate it here. So instead of importing or waiting for all the policies and so many other geopolitical situations that are going around, waiting indefinitely for what, for even for a small material science, like I said, some chemicals or rare earth minerals, we can start looking inwards, start not looking at other people as competitors, create your own ecosystem, and then you can start co-working with them rather than looking at it the others as competitors, because at the end of the day, they are going to procure something from you and you're going to procure something. So it's going to be business at the end of the day. So you have to keep that in mind when you look at it from a demography perspective, because once we are able to see every company across the globe, or US companies or whoever you name it, they are coming down to India, and we are the guinea pigs. We are giving them the data. Why not we use our own data internally and then make use of our doctors, give it to them, whatever you're finding. See, it's two-way. We think that, okay, AI is there and the doctors have to use this. So the doctors are waiting for, okay, what is that you guys are generating and how can we apply? So that is the point. If we are able to bridge this particular thing, so they have the right set of data. Like I said, if whatever device that you're wearing, it's just a data diary for you, and you can just compete with, or you can just complement it, or kind of compete with the person who's sitting next to you, saying that I walked about 20,000 steps, whereas you did 15. But is it meaningful data? But this data is what Google is now using it, and they're creating some kind of a product out of it, and they're selling it back to you. They've taken it free of the same thing free of cost. Whereas if we are going to give it to our own doctors, the same data is not available to us. If you're going to do it, then they will be able to come out with some really good preventive measures, because that is what they are lacking. Because at the end of the day, they are just treating. They are not in, because since they don't have the knowledge or the data or even the demography, if you start giving all those data to them, and that is where ABA and many other things that the government or others are pushing, once we have enough data, then you can actually complement each other, create devices, create an ecosystem, and all of us can not only grow from a business perspective, but also be wealthy. And that is what is, at the end of the day, for me, it is health is wealth. So you can actually, and to his question of, it is more about, we are not, it's more of the flower part of it. So we can just grow rather than right now we are at weeding. We are not giving data. We don't want to do certain things here.
Very nice. Yeah, please, yes.
See, coming to the point that you mentioned, annually, India as a country is adding 8 to 10 lakh engineering graduates every year. So imagine the pool of resources the country has. So I like to put it in one line, just complementing what Sir said. You ideate, you innovate, you test, you validate, you manufacture, you scale up in India, take it out. That will make more meaningful and the wealth grows.
Great. We are running slightly out of time. So what we'll do is this. I'm just going to ask Naveen very quickly to say a few words about what we just discussed. What are some uniquely India-specific health issues you're coming across, and what are some universal ones? And where is the opportunity for entrepreneurship in this space?
So, looking at a national level, I don't have the exact figures, but then we do have a lot of doctors that are coming out. But what we also see is that there's crowding of doctors in the metros, in the top cities, and you hardly have any people in the tier two or in the rural areas. So I just wish that there would one day be some sort of network where we understand which areas in our country is lacking certain resources. Like take for example, I do something called ROP screening. How many of you know what ROP is with relation to the eyes? Does anyone know what ROP is? Google. Okay. ROP stands for retinopathy of prematurity. Okay. So basically what I do is I look at all these preterm babies. These are babies born less than 36 weeks. Normally pregnancy should last from 36 to 40 weeks, right? So when baby is born earlier, 34 weeks, 32 weeks, 28 weeks, now these babies can have a special eye condition called ROP, right? So I'm in the Indian ROP group, which is basically all doctors from all the ROP specialists in the country are in that group, right? But even now, like, people ask, I need somebody in Udaipur, I need somebody here, I need somebody there. We need one baby to be seen in Jaipur. We don't have a proper connect, and we don't have a proper connect. I mean, these are all big city names, which I've told you. What about the smaller cities? ROP happens everywhere, irrespective of, whether you're in a major town or not. So there is lacunae here. There are specialists who are 100 kilometers away, 200 kilometers. How are they reached? So if there's some sort of way where not just ROP, any disease for that matter, that particular specialist should be able to easily access and understand, okay, these pockets require more attention and I should go and spend more time there, right? So if something like that could come, that would be great.
Great. We'll just take the questions now. Answers will be later on in the break. So what are the questions? I think just shout out your question.
what is that missing when you consider a co-founder? What is it actually missing? Because we do have the same grit, determination, and as you told, I have pivoted several times to make up what I've done. So what is that missing? What does a co-founder give? Because I do have a lot of supports. I do have strategic advices from different people. What's that actually?
Okay, sorry, we'll take the answers afterwards. We'll just take the question,
yes.
running out of time. But be patient. Okay, somebody else had a question. Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Yeah.
So I'm Shruti. I'm a second year EC student. So my question is that actually, as we are talking about health is wealth, like people come up and are ready to invest in preventive healthcare only after they get sick, not like before. How would you help them? What is that one thing young adults can and adults can do and change their mentality that would make them invest priorly? That's something I want to ask you, sir.
Yeah, we'll come there also after the session. But one last question. I remember there were 3 hands up there. Yes, yeah. Last question. Yes.
India has had a lot of regulatory issues, policy issues, especially in the healthcare sector. So how do startup founders work around those issues and move around the policies to build products rather than getting into trouble with those issues? Because a lot of international companies, MNCs also tend to pull out products from India because of problems like cost control or policy advocacy issues.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. We'll take the answers afterwards because we got to wrap up now. We got a video, a 10-minute video to play. But my last question for the panel in just one sentence each. What is your one tip for the entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience, which you haven't mentioned yet? One tip in 1 or 2 sentences. A tip for the founders. Tip for those who want to become founders.
Try, fail, falter, try again. Never give up.
Great.
So from a health tech perspective, I would say that or deep tech, clinical evidence is very important. Then bring in an IP into it and create some. Today, the market is more for integrated innovation ecosystem, which is like not just in the allopathy part of it, because the government is also investing on Ayush and all other things. You have, like when you spoke about demography, you have Siddha out here. So try to bring in something out there. And that is where every stream that you're studying has something into it. And everybody can, like instead of being a solopreneur, you can actually have multiple co-founders who can take care of all these different stuff out here when you work with all entire ecosystem with you.
Great. Thanks. Vivek, 1 or 2 sentences.
The very famous saying, since the moving man meets his love. So keep moving, keep failing. And I'm sure that someday, either in entrepreneurship or in corporate, as in wherever your interest lies, you will find your luck. But the important is to never give up and never miss meeting more people. So events like MXR and all of the stuff that these guys are doing, everything helps. Okay, you never know where your next lottery ticket is lying. So just keep on meeting people, trying on new things, keep on moving, and I'm sure that will be successful.
Very nice. Yes, you can't be lucky. You have to create your own luck. This is a very nice Indian proverb like that. Only the crow which flies catches the worm. Only the flying crow sees where the worm is moving. So if you want to be successful, you got to be moving, getting ideas and so on. Doctor, you have the last word. What's one tip you'd like to give the engineers in the audience on how to get into the health and why there's so many opportunities over there? Maybe.
I can only speak from personal experience. So, so the thing was, I did my studies from South, that is from Tirchi and Tirunelveli. Okay, so when I came to Chennai, so my hospital's RKI center. So when I came to Chennai, I had absolutely no connections here. I just had building, I had some instruments, but I had absolutely zero clientele. And it took, so what I had to learn from that was, it took me at least 3-4 years for me to establish myself. Okay, so sometimes the path is not all that easy. Being a entrepreneur, being a doctor or an engineer, whatever it may be, it's very difficult because initially when I worked in an institute, I used to see about 80 to 100 patients a day, and then coming back and starting your own clinic, and you're suddenly seeing 1 patient, 2 patient. It takes a huge mental toll. Nobody talks about that. You're constantly busy, and then all of a sudden you're hardly doing anything, and you studied so much, you have done so much. So that's something you need to have, like a really strong mental mindset. And as Aarti ma'am said, yes, we do have to fail sometimes. There are so many things I have tried. I've tried AI chatbot for my hospital. Nothing really works. So you basically have to try, and eventually you need to find that niche for yourself and then work on that. So for me, my calling was ROP screening, and now I'm screening in almost 16 hospitals in Chennai. And what I found out, see, necessity is the mother of invention. So what I also found was, along this journey, you will find that there is some places where you can do some value addition. So what I found was, in many places where my competitors or other doctors were doing the screening, many of the babies used to have eye infection after the screening. Why? Because the clip, the speculum that we used to keep the eyes open, that is basically being reused again and again. So I found a niche there. I sort of started manufacturing and selling these ROP kits. So it's a use and throw kind of thing. And it's much safer for the baby. There is absolutely no cross contamination, no infection. So basically, it's something which requires, and now I'm quite successful because of all this. So my take home is, it's not going to be an easy journey, that's for sure. But you all need to put your foot down, have that strong mental mindset, and keep looking to the future. And ultimately, you will find a way forward.
That's a fantastic way. Yeah.
10 seconds. Okay, so that reminds me of another story. There was a man who bought a new car. Okay, he had only one condition, that he will take out his car when all the signals in the city are green. So what happened eventually? The car never went out. So the idea is to take that first step, make that mistake, but then yeah, keep on trying. So, thanks.
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Very famous Chinese proverb. Anyway, a big round of applause, please, for our 4 outstanding speakers for sharing with us their very valuable time on a Friday evening to spend with bright young minds of the future. So the task is upon you now to go ahead and change the world. We have a 10-minute video to play from our other speaker, Srijit. So maybe we can all go down over there, and then we go to the workshop, and then we break for tea and coffee. So thank you all so much. Thanks once again. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Srijit Adamana. I am an alumnus of IIT Madras, incidentally. Graduated from IIT Madras in 2006. Been working for the last 20 years across various industries, spanning from management consulting to healthcare. Last 6 years I had a very successful stint with Ayurved, and we got acquired by Apollo and had a great learning phase during that time. And after over the last few months, while I've taken a break from Apollo Ayurved, I'm very happy to kind of give some perspectives in today's session. It's a privilege for me to be part of this session today with esteemed panelists, and I thank TIA for inviting me to this Health is Wealth session today. The first question posed to me is evidence-based Ayurveda, how does it gel with AI, digital health and modern delivery? It's going to be a long answer, but I think it deserves to be inspected a little bit deeper. So let me take it one after the other, right? First question is about AI. So one of the basic principles of Ayurveda is that it doesn't treat the disease. It actually treats the patient who has the disease. So as you know, every patient is unique. So that's where the whole complexity begins. So if a trained physician actually is treating or is kind of examining you, he or she will actually go through a thorough protocol where he or she tries to get a health baseline of the individual being consulted. That involves, techniques such as, through observation, through questioning, through touch, and multiple Ayurveda examinations, looking at modern biomarkers. So at any point of time, the doctor is looking at around 100-150 data points and observations. That's where, the kind of the mind is working like a fuzzy logic to kind of arrive at what the diagnosis is. Once that is done, once the data points are captured, there is also one thing of analysis and kind of understanding how exactly, which theory in the Ayurveda textbook has to be leveraged. There is a prescribed way of looking at it, getting all the data, putting it in a framework and understanding the applicable samhita or theory, and then arriving at a solution. So this is a prescribed procedure, and it's called Pratyaksham, Anumanam, Aptopatesham and Yukti. So that's the way kind of the whole process works. And as you know, as you would have known, it's a highly reasoning based, multiple data being collected, multivariate, fuzzy logic kind of a model. So what more does AI want, right? I mean, so it's eminently possible to build AI solutions that are complex, reasoning-based, large language model solutions. So that's first part of it. Digital health, right? Second one. So any digital product, as you all know, thrives on two things, right? One is how easy is it to acquire customers, and then retention and how do we bring the lifetime value. That's the economics of any digital product. Here again, since Ayurveda, most of the patients who come to Ayurveda have non-communicable diseases, and then they need a little bit longer kind of engagement with the physician. And secondly, like I said, when Ayurveda starts looking at the patient is a complex phenomena, right? I mean, so you'll have so many conditions. So therefore, what happens, and then the solutions are also not just the disease, but also the quality of life, stress, sleep, digestion, appetite, micturition, overall well-being, extra. So from that angle, what happens is that there is a lot of need for the doctor to engage on a constant basis, right? So that kind of makes it very, very useful and prime for a digital product. High engagement with the patients, lot of observation and constant kind of working. So that's I would say is the strength, and therefore very good opportunities to build digital solutions on top of it. Now, how does it integrate with modern delivery? So here again, we need to start looking at the complementary strengths, right? Modern medicine, especially since we worked extensively in integrative medicine, a lot of areas where modern medicine brings solution to actually save the patient during emergency or other stage, right? Surgical solutions, etc. But Ayurveda has a very important role to play complementing what modern medicine is doing, how to heal the patient, how to bring back the overall well-being of the patient, how to reduce inflammation. So therefore what happens is that the problems that a physician in Ayurveda solves versus the modern medicine person solves is very slightly complementary. Once both parts understand this, the integration becomes easy, and it's going to be a very powerful solution. And we should actually be proud that this is something India can offer to the whole world. It's not just something which we should be using, because it's very unique in that way. Right, so that's where I feel that there's a huge opportunity that we are sitting. It's a gold mine that we are sitting. It's only a matter of time before it becomes global. And that leads to the next question: can India lead in preventive and integrative healthcare? My point is that that question has to be flipped to saying that it should not be can, it should be how India can become a global leader. Because if you see, the need of the hour is preventive and integrative healthcare. Because as you see, I mean, if you look at India's healthcare burden also, right, such a big population, a lot of patients are, for example, people are, let's say, pre-diabetic, 100 million plus people, and then early diabetic, people die, number of diabetic, PCOS, PCOD, so many lifestyle related conditions, and that kind of progressively escalate. So and especially with India now taking a bigger investment, I mean, the government also spending a lot on healthcare as part of GDP. The strategy of curative is not a viable strategy, right? So eventually it has to become a preventive model where we are avoiding people from getting into these complicated scenarios. If that is indeed the goal that we need to go behind, which is also the UN SDG goals and all those kind of things, health and well-being for individuals, right? So from that angle, and we have strong advancements in technology, multiple capabilities being built. So we have all the recipes to make this as a big success. Now, if you look at today's world, the preventive conversation happens in the top strata of the society, right? The informed, well-affluent people, they are the ones who are talking about longevity, well-being, and kind of looking at solutions which can help them handle their chronic conditions, etc. Right? That's because of the awareness and the consciousness that they have built that this is indeed the right strategy. So the need of the hour is how do we kind of take that and bring it into the larger strata of society? Where do people have time to actually understand the problem? Where do people have time to invest into good habits and kind of enable that, so that they live healthily, right? That requires a lot of change, habit changes, awareness building, and all these kind of things, right? So it's a journey, but I think that is the focus. And I am quite bullish about this field, because if I take a parallel with fintech industry, right? I mean, it has been a traditional industry for a long time, regulated, banks were there, nationalized banks were there. Suddenly when the whole digital finance, the stack, right, India, UPI payment stack, etc. came in, suddenly we saw the disruption. Suddenly habits change. No more people go to bank with the passbook and get money, right? You scan a QR code and kind of pay. So that has been adopted across age groups, across states, and multiple diversity. So I strongly believe, and the beauty of it is that health stack is also being built in similar, the same people and in similar way. So it's for us to, smart people like you to start thinking, how do we leverage this kind of situation? There is a needy people, there are a bunch of needy people sitting there. The infrastructure is being built on one side, we have talented people. How do we bring all the three together? How do we kind of build solutions? Right? And it has to be disruptive also, right? I mean, habit changes have to be there next time. I'm quite bullish that, the people who are smart, who are sitting in this room, if you apply enough, I'm sure that this is going to be the next $1 billion solutions emerging, right? And don't shortchange yourself. Don't bring in things like, I will just solve the a part of the problem, but start thinking deeper, start solving for, specific issues also. Take issue wise or whatever it may be, right? Solve for a cancer patient, stroke, multiple things you can pick up, and I'm sure that solutions can come through. So that's the whole thing. And third one is that the lessons from scaling Ayurveda and integration with Apollo, right? So the learning for me quickly, what worked for us, that we always build solutions that are scalable. Our care has been protocols based, so which kind of removed the variability which may be brought in by a practicing physician, or the lack of consistency for at different doctors and settings. So that is a big learning, that anything that you build, look at it from a scale perspective. If I'm doing it for 5 people, can I do it for 100 or 1,000 people? So that's one thing which helped us to deliver consistent care with high level of patient satisfaction. Second one is that, especially in the integrative space, I already mentioned, we need to keep it non-conflicting. When you're combining practices, it should be not for the heck of it, but for the best interest of the patient, right? To that extent, the flexibility should be there in terms of the level of integration and everything, right? And the third one is that always close the loop with right amount of documentation and clinical evidence. Never ever underestimate, your ability to capture the clinical outcomes, and also in retrospectively looking at it, running models to see what works, what doesn't work, and it gives tremendous amount of goodness in terms of fine-tuning the solutions. And last but the most important part is that, bridge the communication gap. Typically, when multiple practices come in, be it Ayurveda or allopathy, the natural tendency is that, people talk in their own known languages. The Ayurveda physician may be talking about Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and 100 other things. Modern medicine doctor may be talking in a different plane. So it's the best interest of us to bring that common language and bring the science, medical science into the picture, and try to kind of genuinely understand the value addition. That took us a long way, because people really understood what we are trying to do, and the kind of protocols and documentation also went a long way, because people actually started seeing, okay, this is the kind of outcomes that we are bringing across thousands of patients. So that's the learning that we have, and be at it. I mean, no healthcare problem is simple, and don't underestimate the solutions as well. And I'm sure that it gives you a lot of kick in solving these kind of problems. All the best. I'm sure, I hope that this entrepreneurship day, I am able to inspire at least one person in this audience to actually not even go for entrepreneurship, but at least think and evaluate whether this is a opportunity worth pursuing. All the best, and thanks a lot.
Yeah, I think we'll take a quick picture together with the speakers. After this, we have the workshop, so do stay back. We have Dr. Madan, Professor Vineet, and we have Gautam, who are going to be taking sessions. So I'd like to invite the speakers here for a quick picture, and then we go to the green room.